The AV-8B is consistently one of the most underrated jets in War Thunder's top tier meta. It has all the same advanced weapons, ordnance, and avionics as its more popular counterparts, but sadly it gets overshadowed by the fancier toys like the F-16 and the MiG-29. Well, this time around, Italy got its fancy new toy, the Rank 8 11.7 battle rating AV-8B+. The AV-8B Harrier 2 was a joint project between the US and the UK in the 1970s with the goal of fixing the inadequacies that were found in the original AV-8As. After over a decade of development, the first AV-8Bs were introduced into service in 1985. Immediately, work began on upgrading the new jets, and in 1989 we got the AV-8B in A, but you'd probably know this version better as the Harrier 2 GR7 that we have in the British tech tree. Then, again, the very next year, in 1990, work started on another upgrade package for the Harrier 2. This version would be called the AV-8B Plus, which is the subject of this video. This version of the jet brought upgrades across the board with the addition of a radar, an engine that produced roughly 10% more thrust, and the ability to fire off more advanced missiles. You know, the kind that aren't in the game yet. I did better than expected playing the AV-8B Plus. Across 80 matches, I held a 1 KD and a 50% win rate, which is decent considering that I was facing F-16s, F-14s, MiG-23s, and MiG-29s, which are all considered better than the Harrier, and I couldn't even go Mach. Speed really is the one thing holding this plane back. The fastest that you'll ever reach in the Harrier is 0.9 Mach. And you can reach that speed at a fairly low throttle, which is a good thing because if you have the throttle on this plane at anything higher than 94%, you'll burn up the engine eventually. At least you'll be able to use this plane's incredible thrust to take off faster than anybody else. And even without thrust vectoring, you have such a tight turning circle that you'd make a zero blush. For offensive weaponry, the B+ doesn't really have much to choose from. You'll always have access to the 25mm GAU-12 cannon. Think of this as the GAU-8 from the A-10 just shrunk down to 25mm. They even sound the same. For missiles, you only have two options, AIM-9Ls and AIM-9Ms. It's like asking if you want good or better missiles. AIM-9Ms are some of the first missiles in War Thunder with infrared countermeasures, in case you didn't know what IRCCM stands for. How it works on this missile is that when the seeker sees the enemy plane as pop flares, the seeker turns off for a short amount of time, then turns back on, reacquires the plane, and repeat. In practical terms, use this like you would an AIM-9L, and it won't care if the target plane dropped a few flares on the way there. The AIM-9M is also the first missile with a smokeless motor, which is basically what it sounds like. You don't see the trail of smoke coming off the missile, so it's harder to see. Sadly, the enemy still sees the missile warning box around the missile, and I know that a lot of people would complain, but I wish the Gaijin would remove that for smokeless motors. The B+ might not have much in the way of missile selection, but it makes up for it with the variety of ordnance that it can carry. Like any multi-role fighter, you have access to 250, 500, and 1,000 pound dumb bombs and high drag bombs. You can also carry a bunch of Zuni rockets if that's what gets you going, but what most people are going to use is the smart ordnance, of which you can carry GBU-12s and 16s, both of which are aimed with the Lightning II targeting pod. To round off the list, you can also carry 4 AGM-65D Mavericks, but if you use all of those, you can only carry 2 missiles. In air battles, I brought a combination of 5,000 pounds worth of bombs and 4 AIM-9Ms. And for ground battles, I bring the 4 AGM-65Ds and 2 AIM-9Ms. When you play the B+, you really have to learn to take it slow. It's not like you're going anywhere fast anyways. In air battles, just take your time bombing an enemy base, and then swing around and try to find any targets of opportunity. You'll be able to find those often because most people don't see the Harrier as much of a threat, and therefore most people don't target you. In ground battles, just stay away from the battlefield and lob Mavericks at your targets. Your lack of speed makes you a sitting duck for any high tier A that's paying attention, so I wouldn't get close. If you're thinking about grinding out the AV-8B+ to be a strike fighter, then I say go for it. It's the best multi-role fighter that Italy has access to right now. If you're looking for something to just grind out top tier Italy, then I think that most people would be better served just staying with the Tornado IDS. There is something special about flying out in a Harrier though. The AV-8B Plus was one of the last modifications to the Harrier 2, and the family never received a subsequent plane, so this might be the last time that I get to talk about a Harrier in War Thunder. If you like this review, then leave a like, and if there's something that you think I can improve about these reviews, then leave them in the comments. I hope that you all have a great rest of your day.